Welcome to the fastest daf in town. Today we're in Masechtas Nedarim Daf Chav Gimel. We are going to begin on Chav Gimel Amud Aleph about 7 lines from the top. Rabbi Shmuel bar Rav Yosi Havale Nidra LaMishra. So they had a neder, and as we've been seeing up until now, we've been trying to figure out a Pesach to be able to remove them. So Asa Kamayu de Rabbanon Armalei Nedarta Daita Dehachi. Because did you make a neder with such intention? So Armalhu in Nedarta Daita Dehachi. So yeah, I had das exactly this. So Armalhu and Kama Zimnin. He said yes many times. Kivan Dechazahu Katsara. He saw that there was this wanderer, this washer, the Mitzaru Rabbanon, that was causing strife for the Rabbanon. So Machya B'uchla, the Katsari. He hit him, says Rashi, with a kli shemishamshin bo hakayvsin bigdehen, with some type of utensil which is used for laundering and for cleaning the clothing. Go to Rashi above. V'hayanoisim mishemesh l'tzel. So that was actually the Rashi we saw in the previous daf, that there was clearly an element of tsar that was going on, and they ended up hitting with this kli. Amar daita demachili katsara lo nadri, with the intention to have known that I was actually going to get hit with this guy, would never have made a neder. Visharlin nafshe, and he was able to become mutter himself. So it doesn't mean, again, he did himself, as we saw in the Ran before, but it means that based on this, it was enough for him to be able to be removed. This is a case of Noilad. This is something that was just like created, just happened, which obviously has no link to the time that you made this neder. So on this, the Gemara again poses this whole notion. It's Noilad. He had no idea that he was going to end up getting hit with a stick. That Noilad is not a Pesach. So if it's not a Pesach, so then why do we say that he was mutter removed from his neder? Look at Rashi. She'en roy le'era kazeh. It's not shach that he could have thought of such a possibility. Avulhani de amr de mitzday rabbanan la milsa de noyodhu. All the cases where before we said we're causing tsar to the rabbanan, that's not noyod. That was something which is a shchiach. So Amalei, so the Gemara says here too, Hai lab noyodhu. This is not considered to be noyod. De shchichi avkuri de mitzday rabbanan. So people will protect the Rabbanon if they see that you're bothering them. And therefore, this is something in which perhaps you could have known about. Okay. Look at question TA 28, also TB 29. Rabbi Shmuel, Rabbi Yosi, etc. Havihu katsu machia oimer adaita de machile katsar lo nidri. I would never made such a neder, and it worked. So we said, L'chara, Madua ein zen noilad. And really, all you need to write was is shchiach. So I wrote, since this is a davar shchiach, that when a Talmud Chacham is in sar, or being mavaza, someone's being mavaza Talmud Chacham, people will come and protect their kavod, here by hitting the guy. And therefore, that isn't considered to be noilad. Okay. The Beis of Abaya Habiliyahi Barata. So the house of Abaya, there was a daughter, Bartahu, who Aimer Lekravai, he Amr Lekriva. So it was a dispute among the spouses. Each one wanted the daughter to marry their side of the family. Amrullah ti tasra hanisa loch. He says, I'll aser hana upon you. E avart adatoi, if she obeys my intentions, and if she causes our daughter to marry her relatives. So he made a neder to that effect. So azalt v'avarta al daite, she went exactly against his wishes. The insva kriva, and they married the daughter off to her relatives. So l'chara, the neder should be chal. So asach made Rabbi Yosef Amalei. This is very interesting. Il havi yodat, if you would have known the avart al daitach uminsva la kriva, if you would have known that she actually would have done this, mi adarta, would you have actually made the neder? So Omer lo v'shari Rabbi Yosef. So it's interesting that the actual neder was, it's going to be chal if you don't let my daughter, if you marry my daughter off to your relatives. And she did precisely that. But it was really just a bluff. He didn't really want to do that. He wouldn't have expected that she was going to do such a thing. And therefore, he really didn't want to make the neder, because he wasn't expecting for her to do it. And had he known that she would have done it, he would never have made the neder. Okay. Fine. Umi shari ki hagabna? In fact, the Gemara, does that actually work? And yes, Vasanya Masbodam Echad, Sheidres Ishto. There was a man who made a neder on his wife. Well, also regel, regarding going up to be Olu regel. Va'avral Daitav also regel. She ended up going to Israel for the holidays. Both near Rabbi Yosi Amelo, the Ilu Hayisi Odea Shel Versal Daitach. Had you known that she would have violated your words, Olu regel klum hidarto, would you have made a neder? Amelo lo. Rabbi Yosi. So we see, once again, Rabbi Yosi, the same Rabbi Yosi, again felt that was enough of a Pesach that it could be removed. Okay. Weiter. Let's see the next Mishnah. So Rabbi Elazar ben Yaakov Omer, Av haroitze lahadir es chavero. Also, a person wants to make a neder on his friend, she'oichel etzlo, regarding eating by him. Yomer lo, you say to him, kol neder shani osid lidor. Any neder which in the future I'm going to make throughout the year, hu batel, it will be nullified. Uvavad shehi zocher b'shas neder. It has to be, we're going to discuss what this line means, that you have to remember at the time of the neder that you made the stipulation before. So what exactly is this talking about? So let's look at Rashi. I made a neder, I'm not going to, that you cannot get hana from me, if you do not eat by me. Hainunami nidri's reason. This is actually not a neder, it's not chal. In fact, you don't even need heter chacham, because she'enu mediru el k'dei l'zaras ha'shoichel imo. Your whole intention is just to get the guy to eat by you, but you really don't want it to be a true neder. And therefore, this is another case of nidri's reason, just like we saw in the previous Mishnah, how a moicher and a lekeach will sometimes mention 5 or 3, but they're 4 and 2, whatever it is, in order to be able to meet somewhere in the middle. And therefore the neder doesn't work. So therefore this is, again, the Mishnah, kol neder, if a person says, kol neder shani asid lidar hu batal, you can make the stipulation and say, any neder that I say is going to be batal, just as long as you remember it in the future. The question is this one, the Mishnah talking about one case, is this 2 different situations? So the Gemara in the Havamina thinks that it's one case. So the Gemara says as follows: B'kivan the oimer kol neder shani asid lidar hi batal. A person says that any neder that in the future is going to be batal, lo shamale v'lo asa b'hadei, lo shamale v'lo asa b'hadei. Says Rashi, hai mudar v'lo asa l'meichel b'hadei. It's not going to come to eat by you. Hoil v'haneder batal. So the neder is batal. So he should be able to do so. So the Havamina, the Mishnah, is one case. So clearly, so we're saying it's batal. As you said, the Nedarim aren't chal. You specifically said it. So this whole Mishnah is hard to understand, that if you made this neder against your friend about eating, so he says it's zrizus, and you also said within this framework, this statement that any neder make is batal. So obviously, if every neder you made is batal, it's not because of nidri zrizus, it's because you made the stipulation that your nedarim don't mean anything. That should be enough of a reason. So this is why the Gemara continues and says it's actually a chasur mechsra. Let's continue Chav Gimel Beis. There's words missing in our Mishnah. There's actually two elements of our Mishnah. A person wants to eat by a person wants his friend to eat by him. And he's refusing to. And you make this type of a neder. The truth is the neder doesn't mean anything, because it's just nidri's rizun. Who? That's case number one. And then the second part of the Mishnah says, in general, a person doesn't want his nedarim to work kol hashana all year. Yamad Rosh Hashanah should stand up on Rosh Hashanah like we do. We do a taras nedarim on erev Rosh Hashanah. Yomi should say kol neder shani asid lidor a bottle. Any neder in the future that I'm going to make will be null. And then this is the line which we're going to have to understand. However, you need to remember, let's say 3 months later, when you actually made a neder, oh yeah, I remember I made that stipulation. So, Gemara asks, is zachar, if you remember, let's say 3 months later, oh yeah, I made this stipulation on Rosh Hashanah, so akri l'tanoi, v'kaim l'nidre. The fact that you're saying this now, why are you making a neder? Obviously, the fact that you remember what you did, and you're still making a neder, you're clearly making a statement that you don't want that condition from Rosh Hashanah to stand. You want the neder to work. So it's a difficulty. Why would the Mishnah say that it will be batel as long as you remember a few months later that you made the stipulation? If you made the stipulation and now you remember it, so why are you making this neder? It must be actually when you remember the stipulation from before, l'chayra, then we should say that the neder does work, and that your condition does not work. And this is the dispute. Rabbi Tani, you're right. You should actually read you're right. You should actually say that you don't remember at the time of the neder, and this is how you can understand it. If you make a neder you make this condition on Rosh Hashanah, and then 6 months later you make a neder, and you just weren't thinking, you just made a neder, so that neder is nothing, because it goes back to the original condition you made on Rosh Hashanah, that every neder that you make in the future is batel. However, if you remember, then that should change it, and we should say that the neder does work, the neder is chal, because if you remember, as we said, so then it must be that you don't care what the condition is, you still want to make the neder. Because if otherwise, the neder wouldn't work, so then now that you remember it, why are you making a neder? Rabbi Omer, so that's according to Abaya. Rabbi says, no, you can keep it the way the Mishnah says, that when on Rosh Hashanah you make the stipulation that any neder I make in the future is batel, and a few months later, when you make the neder, you have to remember that. So how do you understand that? Our answer is, so Hachma Eskinan, Shehisna B'Rosh Hashanah, that you made a condition to be mevatel certain nedarim on Rosh Hashanah. Maybe not all of them, but certain nedarim. V'lo yada b'ma hisna, but you don't remember now what the condition was. And it's what type of nedarim specifically you had in mind over there. So if we look in the Ran, Rava lo asla flugia le dabaya. He's actually not really coming to argue with him. The Maidahu, the kol sheinu zeicher tenai klal b'shas nidro haneder batal. Says in the situation where you don't remember the condition at all at the time of the neder, he holds the neder is going to be batal. Elodolo nichale l'shebushe lishin demasnisin. Doesn't want to change the language of the Mishnah. Really, that you remember it. Etc. Says the Ran, there's two dinim. There's trade dinim. If you don't remember what you said before, b'shas nidro, sahar neder batal. So the neder is batal. But if you remember a little bit of the condition tonight, of a little gamri, you don't remember it completely. If you're going shehisna Rosh Hashanah v'lo yada b'ma hisna, You made a condition, but you don't remember what it was about. Klemer, Shisnal Davar Meyuchad. You said, I'm going to, any neder I make about some specific thing will be bottled. However, Enu Zeicher, Imal Pas, well, a Yayin, B'kiyotz Behen. You don't know if, when on Rosh Hashanah you said, if I ever make a neder against bread, right? But you remember that you made some type of condition, but you don't know about what. But let's say you remember in that situation everything. If he says I'm doing based on my original intention, that I'm making this based on this neder, that's batal now. And he writes a shehe batal. I want to be batal. But niskar achar she'al davar zen shenadar achshav hisna b'tchilo avatal nidrei lo is b'masha. Okay. Fine. And the Ran also says in here, in halacha kaimalon kirava. We actually hold like Rava. We'll look a few more lines over here. Benira, it appears, Shema she'oimrim ksas kehilois b'yoma kippurim kol nidre, ve'esarei, etc. That maybe this is why it's said in some kehilois in Yom Kippur they say kol nidre. What davar zeh heim mischavonim. This is what their intention is. Levatel nedarim, to nullify any vows. Sheyidro l'achar mikan, that you will make afterwards. Ella shilashainim mishubash. The language is a little bit confusing. Shenirim l'shainim she'ematir nedarim she'ovru. It sounds like it's nullifying the nedarim that took place. Zet ein lo inyan. El nedarim haboim l'achar mikan. Really, it should be talking about nedarim that happens afterwards, skipping a line. Vein roy loimer kain kidei shel yikol roisham ben nedarim. Jahad tana mistamlon statume. Okay. Fine. So it's interesting that the Ran brings down that this is maybe the makor of why we say kol nidre on Yom Kippur. Okay. So let's continue. Again, Rabbi Oyim can read me car. You know that you wanted to be mavatal a certain type of neder, let's say on bread. However, at the time, you forgot what it was. V'hashta kon nadar, and now you're making a neder. So izachar b'shas neder. If you remember, it was on bread. And you say that my neder is based on my original intention. Nidri leis mamasha. So then the neder has no mamashas because it's going back on the original stipulation. Lo moral dasri shaina aninoid. If you don't say it goes back, then ikri latane. Then we remove the original condition of a kaim nidre. So in other words, let's say you do remember it was bread. So you say I want it's al dasri shainim. If you say I'm doing it on my original intention, so then my neder means nothing. However, if I don't say that, so then a condition is removed and my neder works. Rav Huna bar Chinana savar midrashe b'pirka. So he was thinking maybe he should teach this whole thought process in public. Says Rashi, b'drasha haraitza shel yiskaimu nedarav. Someone who doesn't want to keep his nedarim, that maybe you should make the stipulation. So Amalei Rava Tana Kamastayim La Stume. So he actually closed or he hid away this particular law. Kadesh Shalo Yinhagu Kalas Raish Ben Nedarim. We don't want people to be lightheaded in Nedarim. Yad Darshas Le Bepirka. You're going to go teach this in public. So because of that, interestingly enough, it may be better not to teach this in public, which again is the question about maybe there's an Indian not to say kol nidre, right? Because it seems almost like you're causing kalas reish in the Nedarim. Okay, we're going to stop there. Let's look at one more question. Question 6. Misha hisna Rosh Hashanah sheyichayil nedarav she'asid lindor al atzma v'shachach gamri, completely forgot mikol tanai b'neder. Not that he had some recollection, but he totally forgot when he made the neder. The im chal nidra. So is the neder going to be chal? So we say that ein nidar of chal and klal. The neder will not work. So again, if he completely forgot, so then we say about his condition before. So according to this reading, we say that the neder is not chal at all. Ad kan.